So I hadn't seen this last week because it wasn't press screen, but I have now gone to see it. I went to see it at the cinema in Shepherd's Bush at 11 o'clock in the morning, which is probably not the ideal time to see it. So there are two. There's an original Black Christmas anyway, which is the 1974 Bob Clark version, which is a kind of, well, not Bob Clark, it's the Bob Clark original, which is a bit of a cult movie and is quite interesting. There was a 2006 remake, which is not very good at all. This really shares only the title and sort of premise with the original. It's directed by Sophie Tucker, who co-wrote it with April Wolfe. It was shot in New Zealand. And what it attempts to do is to put a sort of feminist twist on the old slasher tropes. It has a sorority group stalked by a mysterious hooded slasher in the run-up to Christmas. Among the group is Imogen Poots' Riley Stone, who has a trauma in her past involving one of the local horrible jocks. Meanwhile, the frat house is involved in all these weird hazing rituals that are sort of less Animal's House than Devil's Reign. And the film basically takes those horror ideas and tries to give it a kind of, a more contemporary feminist slant. It opens with a slimy lecturer quoting someone essentially saying that men are better than women and men lift women up in their wake, and then picks on the character of Riley and says, what do you think the speaker meant? And she says, well, I think what he's saying. And he goes, aha, well, it's not a he, it's a she, it's Camille Paglia. So I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. They've thought this through and they're doing something interesting with it. But what then happens is this kind of setup of it's a feminist rewriting of this stuff. It's got this central set piece in which the girls are humiliating the boys with a song which is pointing fingers at their abuse. But the weird thing is the film just falls completely flat. I mean, it sounds like an interesting idea, and yet somehow tonally it's so weirdly misjudged. I couldn't figure out if it was meant to be ironic, whether it was meant to be pastiche, whether it was meant to be self-referential. There are long sections in it that are pretty dull, followed by short sections in it that are just a bit silly. The scares are so oddly orchestrated that you can't figure out whether they're meant to be ironic or meant to be scary. The film also deals with some fairly heavy subject matter, but doesn't really know exactly what tonal level it's going to take with it. It doesn't have the heft or the acerbic bite to pull it off. I mean, watching it, I went from being bored to confused and occasionally intrigued, but never entertained or scared, which is a shame because it sounds like such an interesting film, but it isn't.